There's just nothing like the feeling of making that commitment with the person you love.
And so Ben and I are texting throughout the day because we were making like final payments and things like that for the wedding. And, you know, I clearly remember this message being like, I can't wait to call you my wife. And I was, you know, having that feeling of picturing walking down the aisle, like I'm doing the housework to like our wedding songs, like all of this type of stuff. So everything was well in motion for Saturday.
After an 18-month engagement and 7 years together, everything was set for Ben and Amy to say their vows and finally be husband and wife. Nothing could get in the way of this magical moment they'd both been so excited for, especially not just days before the church bells start ringing. Or could it?
And I remember he's opened the screen door and he has just said, I'm so sorry. And at that point, I've just broken and I remember I hunched over and I just started hysterically crying and my chest started to hurt, like literally like a broken heart. And I'll just never forget that feeling.
I'm Georgia Love and this is Everyone Has an Ex. Come with us as we dive into a collection of unconventional stories about relationships past through the eyes and the hearts of the very people who lived them. To begin our story, I need to take you back to when Amy started her first job at the tender age of 18. She'd never had a boyfriend before, but always had a bit of an inkling that she just might meet someone at work. And she was right, because that's exactly where she met Ben.
So day one, we're sitting in our introduction and this guy's late and the only seat available is next to me. So he comes and sits down next to me and I remember he caught my eye, but I wasn't instantly attracted to him or anything like that.
Sure, that's what they all say. Because it didn't take long of being partnered together on a project at work for things to become a little bit flirty. And you all know how it goes. A bit of workplace banter, some cheeky lingering looks. It wasn't long before numbers were exchanged and they started dating.
I was a little bit like a giddy schoolgirl, like, you know, someone's showing me attention and I remember I went home to my mum and I was like, oh, he's a lot older, you know, and Mum's like, how old is he? And I said 22 and I was 18 and she's like, oh, that's nothing. So from there we, you know, were texting and things like that and then we went on a date and I think it was like, again, one of your cliche movies and dinner dates. And yeah, we got on really well. We obviously saw each other each day at work and it would have been around 2 months that we were seeing each other like on weekends and hanging out and things like that. I think we just like, we got on really, really well. He was a little bit like geeky and nerdy and I was that shy kind of insecure person. So I think we just really worked well together when we were together. He was the nicest person I had ever met.
But much like many workplace romances, well, like many romances between an 18 and a 22-year-old period, it was short-lived.
He was very much keeping me at arm's length, whereas I was very much like head over heels for him. And a few weeks into it was probably about 2 months or so actually, I was like, I don't know what's happening here, like did the whole what are we situation. And he kind of stepped back and was like, this, I don't really want anything serious, you know what this is. And I was actually devastated. I was really heartbroken by that because I thought this, you know, we were together and yeah, I was devastated. I was heartbroken.
But at least she didn't have to face him. Shortly after he called it quits on Amy, Ben got another job and left the company, meaning there were no awkward run-ins in the elevator and no need to do swift 180s when she spotted him by the water cooler. She moved on. Ben who? Well, that was until 6 months later, on her birthday.
So I think it just went something along the lines of happy birthday, hope you've had a great day, and I hope you're doing well.
They always come back. What started as a casual birthday text led to a series of texts that, you guessed it, turned into Ben asking Amy out for dinner to catch up.
I didn't really have any hard feelings, and I think I just wanted to see where it was going to go again. But I was very conscious of being the one driving what happens next. And I remember after dinner we were driving and he was like, did you want to just have a chat? And he was getting really awkward, and I kind of was, I weirdly remember having this confidence about me, sitting there being like, well, you really hurt me last time with the way that you handled things, and I don't know that I can, ever do this again with you, and things like that. And I was really making him put all of his feelings and all of his thoughts out on the table, to the point where I remember sitting there and he was like, oh, I just can't, I don't think I should say this. And so I pushed and he ended up saying, he goes, I realized when everything ended last time that I actually think I love you.
That escalated quickly.
So I remember sitting back thinking, well, like, in my head, I was like, well, this is amazing. Like, I have someone who loves me and wants to be with me. But I was very conscious of getting back into that, and I still had a lot of insecurities. But I agreed to like see where this went, and then things just went full steam ahead.
Yep, like a freight train, they were straight back into a full-blown relationship.
I pretty much put my whole self into this relationship. It became pretty much my life, and I think it was both consciously and unconsciously me doing that, because I had a group of friends from school that, very much went down that party life, out every night, out every weekend, no real sit-down dinners or adult stuff as such. And whereas when I was with him and his friends, they were obviously been through a bit of the party stage. And yes, we would go out and have a drink and things like that, but things never really got rowdy. And I think I just felt more included in that environment with him and his friends than I did with my own friends. So I started to kind of say no to events with them or no to doing things with them. And eventually it just got to the point where I was no longer included or invited, but that didn't bother me.
A new group of friends, the perfect relationship. Amy was on cloud 9, and a year in, Ben arranged for the very first overseas trip to Hawaii.
He'd gone overseas a lot more than me, a lot more experiences of travelling. I had only done one trip overseas myself. I went on exchange in high school, but outside of that I hadn't really travelled much at all, even in Australia. So he planned everywhere to go. We went to Maui and Oahu, and I was so nervous about this holiday. We'd been to trips like nights away and things like that together, but I was just so nervous about this trip. I got homesick at one stage and he was like so supportive. I was sitting eating dinner and I started crying because I was homesick. It's only like a 10-day holiday, but it was just so foreign to me. And I remember him being so supportive, and I just was so embarrassed. And when we got home from the holiday, I wrote, and I cringe at this every time, and I don't know what made me do it, and I don't know. I think I just was on such a high from the holiday and spending so much time with him that I wrote a love letter to him, and it just pretty much said, like, I think I thanked him for his support and just making me become a lot more confident and to have him there, and that, I cringe at it now, just how much I loved him and all this type of stuff. And so, yeah. And I think then that was it for us. That was we were in deep, with the relationship, and it just became the norm. That was us.
The Hawaii trip kickstarted a bit of a tradition. Every year they'd go on a big overseas trip that Ben would take pride in planning. They became that couple, every year filling their friends with envy and feeding their own relationship with more and more wonderful experiences together. So, 5 years in, when Ben planned a 6-week US and Canada extravaganza, it was no surprise that rumours started to swirl that this was going to be the trip, the one when Ben was going to propose.
So when we went on this trip, I was so excited. We were It was just, the greatest time ever. And we got to New York and it was about 2 weeks into our trip. And I was like, I think it's going to be someday here. And we were there for 5 days. And I think it was the third day. And I started to think, oh, okay, maybe it's not New York. But I had rules around if I ever got engaged, I can't be in a foul mood. I can't be hot and sweaty. I can't be this, that. And so it was really hot in New York at that time of year. And one day we spent going around New York, and we went to like the Statue of Liberty, and we went to the old bank where you go in and see where they have all the gold bars and stuff like that and all of this. And I was thinking it was definitely going to be that day, but no, we got back to the hotel room, still not engaged. And I'm like, okay, I don't know when it is now, so I'm just going to start enjoying my holiday. I was like, I'm going to stop overthinking things. And that night we had planned to go to our favourite restaurant in New York because we'd been previously. And we were going to see the Book of Mormon. And I was like, maybe it's tonight. And I was like, no, stop thinking about it. Like, it's just going to happen. So we go to dinner, we go to Book of Mormon. It was amazing. Had the best night ever. And then he said on our walk home, let's go up the new World Trade Center tower. It had not long been up. And I was like, oh, it's happening. But I pretended like, oh, I have no idea it's happening. So it was really late at night and we go through, there's like no one there. So he had his arm around me and we're looking out at New York. But I do remember him just looking down at me and telling me how much he loved me. And then I started to get teary and he's like, he was a lot taller than me. So he's looking down on me and said, all I know is that I just want to spend the rest of my life with you. And then I started crying and he's like, he pulled out the ring and he goes, will you marry me? And I was like, yes, of course. And then, put the ring on and then we're both like laughing, crying, like all emotional. And like, I got this great selfie of us just in the moment, like looking out, like New York's behind us at night. And it was so exciting. And we were just like on cloud nine. And I remember just sitting on the subway, like on the train and just staring at my ring and staring at him and it was like the peak of happiness for both of us.
4 glorious weeks of blissful, loved-up travel and celebrations followed, and as soon as they were landed on home soil, it was time to get down to business and start planning the wedding.
We found someone somewhere very close to home, which is what we wanted. We didn't want our guests to have to travel, and so everything just fell into place. So we got engaged in September and we were getting married not the next May, but the following May. So probably around 18 months or so after that, because we wanted a specific date and we got it. And everything in the wedding planning was easy. Ben and I had always talked about what our wedding party would look like. And he had 2 really close friends from high school that were just guaranteed always going to be there. And I guess I always had that sense of, oh, well, I don't really have any of my own friends anymore. But I had said previously at a family function to his mum that I would love to have his sisters as bridesmaids. So I did feel that little bit of obligation when the time came to have them, but I did want them there because I felt that having family a part of the wedding was really important and special.
Now, Ben's sisters were quite a bit younger than him, 8 and 12 years younger, in fact. And given Amy was just 18 when they got together, she really had grown up with them. She was the cool big sister made even cooler by the fact she wasn't actually their sister. But now, Amy was becoming an even more legitimate part of the family.
I did the whole, got like a pack together of different things and a card of will you be my bridesmaid, and I was so excited, and like a hanger with their names on it and a robe and all that type of stuff. I did that and I remember being so excited to go over and give it to the girls. And so I had my best friend at the time as, I guess, my main bridesmaid, and then the two girls. So we had 3 each in the bridal party. His mum was really excited. Like, it was a really good day. And then we started chatting about what the wedding would look like, the types of dresses, what the plan was, and, you know, all that type of stuff. And everything was really, really exciting.
In the 18 months leading up to the wedding, everything was smooth sailing. Well, as much as it can be when you're planning a huge event. I mean, would it even be a wedding without a few niggling issues or clashes of opinion?
You know, I would message the girls about dresses or what they wanted and things like that. And they would be like, yeah, that's exciting. But then I would find that Ben's mum would say something to Ben, and Ben would then relay that to me about, oh, the girls don't really like this, or they're not sure about this. I felt as though when the plans were being made that everyone was involved. I always asked their opinion and things like that. It was more that their opinion to my face was different to what they were actually feeling or thinking. It kind of started to create a little bit of a tension between us, like, because then I was, whenever I went to message them, I was like, oh, I don't know if they're just going to say yes because they think if they say no that I'm going to get angry, or I didn't really understand why it was so hard for them to kind of speak to me. Like, I didn't think we had anything wrong in our relationship. And I think the girls were very shy as well. So Natalie, the younger one, was very, very shy. And I think she had a lot of anxiety about not wanting to ruin my day as such. So that's probably where that came from.
But they pressed on. And as the big day grew closer and closer, excitement grew. It was now only 1 week away. While Ben was off having his final suit fitting, Amy was pottering around the house organising last-minute bits and pieces when...
And it's from Ben's mum, Vicky, just saying that, his younger sister, Natalie, has got a lot of anxiety at the moment. She's had a lot of issues this week, through school and with her psychologist, and she's just really anxious about ruining my day. What Chris and I think would be best is that, she gets ready with us and we'll drop her down to the venue when she's ready. And then the message just finishes with, can you please send me the hair and makeup that you are having done on the other girls, and we'll organise that for Natalie. And I read it and I was, to me, my first thought was, Ben has not said anything to me about any issues or anything like that, and it just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. I say to Ben, has your mum mentioned anything about Natalie and Saturday? And he looks at me like, no, what are you talking about? And I go, oh, well, I just got this text message. And he read the text message, and I've never seen him so angry. He just lost it and was like, are you fucking serious? Like, there's nothing wrong with her. She just needs to grow up and all of this. And he was like, it's not like this has just happened. This has been planned for 18 months. And so I don't like confrontation. So I instantly was like, it's okay. Like, let's just take a second. And so he was like, I'm not going to the suit fitting, like, fuck this, he's going off. And so we drove home, and, he drove home like a crazy man. And I said, it's okay, like, we'll work something out. I go, if Natalie's not going to be comfortable getting ready with us, then, we'll organise something else. But also, is she going to then be okay to walk down the aisle? Is she going to be okay to go for photos? Is she going to be okay to sit at the bridal table? Like, there was so much going through my head of, why is it just that she doesn't want to get ready with us? I don't know. And was that going to cause issues on the morning? Like, there was so much going on, and, Ben's still losing his mind.
G'day, Osher Ginsberg here. So, you've just finished watching The Bachelorette, but you aren't quite ready to leave the mansion just yet. Well, that's where Alicia Aitken-Radban and myself come in with the Cocktails and Roses podcast. We follow the sisters Ellie and Becky on their quest for love, with episodes dropping straight after The Bachelorette on Thursdays. Subscribe where you get your podcasts.
This being sprung on them only a week before their wedding did not sit well with either of them. But in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't too big a deal and totally fixable. So Amy and Ben came up with a solution.
So I wrote this message back to his mum, and it was just things like, I suffered really bad anxiety and stress. So I felt like I understood what Natalie was feeling, but I just didn't understand why. So I remember writing back to her, and it was all about Natalie. It was like, thank you. And it was, if she's not going to be okay to get ready, is she going to be able to? And like I said previously, walk down the aisle, have photos taken, sit at the bridal table. If it's all going to be too much for her, I really don't mind. I can find a replacement if she just wants to sit with you guys. And I had my mum read the message, Ben read the message, and they both were like, that's a really, caring, good message, send it. So I sent this message, mid-afternoon and never heard anything back.
Now, this was a bit weird. Amy had a good relationship with her mother-in-law-to-be, so the lack of response back to this left her feeling pretty uneasy. And to make it more awkward, well, the next day was Mother's Day, so they were off to a big celebratory brunch with Ben's mum, Vicky, and the whole family.
And I remember in the morning I said to Ben, I was like, are we still going? And he's like, yep, screw them if they want to be like this. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, I still haven't got a reply to that message. And he was like, are you serious? And I was like, yeah, but it's okay. It's okay. We'll work it out. I just hate confrontation. So on the Sunday, walking into the Mother's Day brunch, I walked in and immediately felt this tension between us and his family. And to me, nothing was really that bad at that point. It was just that text exchange. Nothing was falling apart. I just didn't understand the tension at that point in time. And so at brunch, we're obviously discussing things about the wedding and, Ben's getting kind of really worked up and narky at his mum and Nan. And there was a comment about, can we come in and see the boys before you get photos and stuff? And Ben was like, no, I don't know. You can see us when we walk down the aisle. And then the mum and Nan kind of give a look to each other. And I'm just thinking, I don't know what's going on. What have we done that's so bad? And so Emma, the older sister, wasn't there, but Natalie was. And Natalie's who the text message was about. And she was fine, but you could tell things weren't right. And towards the end of the brunch, I just wanted to get out of there. And you could see the look on Ben's face was just angry. And I remember touching his knee under the table and I was like, it's okay. Just thinking it's fine. Let's just get out of here. And then we walk around the table. It was a really small place. And we walk around the table and his mum comes over to say goodbye to us. And she goes, oh, well, I guess I'll just see you on Saturday then, And Ben used to go over during the week. There was nothing to say that he wasn't going to come during the week, but she was kind of pretty much saying to him, well, don't bother. But she gave him this kiss on the cheek and she looks over to me and goes, oh, well, the girls will be there at 3. Our ceremony started at 3:30.
Now, if the right buttons are pushed just enough, it is possible for every bride to snap. Even the calmest of people, those who hate confrontation or haven't had a wedding stress in the world. But when one wrong step will push you over the edge from bride chiller to bridezilla. Well, this was Amy's.
And I turn around and I go, is this how things are going to be for the rest of our life? You just dictating how things work. And so then we started getting into this this argument and, it's in the middle of this tiny cafe on Mother's Day. And so his dad starts kind of ushering us out onto the street. So Ben storms off in anger and I'm going at his mum just being like, I don't understand where all this has come from. Why are you making this so difficult? And, she's like, I'm not. I just am thinking of the girls and all of this. And so at this stage, Ben's standing over at our car with his head on his arm, crying while I'm having this argument with his mum in the middle of the street. I said, well, then forget it. They both won't be bridesmaids. Obviously, I'm worked up at this stage. And I remember her just looking at Ben going, if those girls aren't bridesmaids, we're not coming. I remember just looking over and just shaking my head at Ben in just absolute disbelief. And I walked away. That was the end for me. I was like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And I walked to the car and I said to Ben, I was like, we're going. And I got in the car and I was just raging and he was crying and I'm just raging going, we can't get married like this. This is ridiculous. Like, I don't understand what's happening. Why? And he's like, I don't know, but fuck him, cut him. I don't care. So again, we get home and I'm just like trying to calm the situation and just think like, how has this happened and what are we going to do? And part of me at this stage was just like, you know what? I don't want them there getting ready with me in the morning. So the plan was that we were all to get ready at the cottage together, like my mum, his mum, and the bridesmaids were all going to get ready at the venue. And I was like, I don't want them there. Like, I feel like my morning's going to be full of tension now and I'm not going to be comfortable. I don't want it to happen. But in my head, I was very conscious of that and not going to Ben being like, oh, let's just get rid of them, because I also didn't want to cause any more issues. So I said, look, let's just leave things. We'll sort things out. It's fine.
One thing was clear. Everyone desperately needed to cool off. With only 6 days until their wedding, this needed to be fixed pronto. So she came up with a potential solution that would fix her dilemma and appease Natalie's anxiety about being involved in the wedding. A replacement strategy of sorts.
I've got 2 friends that I could invite to come and get ready with us since I've paid for hair and makeup. The girls can get ready with his parents and come to the venue ready for photos when they're ready. I said, I think that would make me feel a lot better. I think the girls would be comfortable and it would just work.
So on the evening of that fateful Mother's Day, Amy ran it past Ben.
And I said, look, let's just make things easier for everybody. We will have my friends come and get ready with us. The girls can get ready at home and come join us later. And he was happy with that. He was like, look, I think that'll work. So he sent the text message to his mum to say, let's do this. And, you know, she replied and said, yep, that works. That's fine. So it kind of felt like, all right, we've dealt with this. This is how it's going to go. I'm going to have 2 of my good friends come and get ready with us in the morning. It's going to be fun. The girls will get ready with the parents, come out for photos later, and everything's going to be fine.
Oh, thank God. Well, it wasn't what they'd originally planned. It was a solution. They could put this nightmare of a day to bed and move on. So, as the Monday of wedding week rolled around, everything was back on track and Amy and Ben could not have been more excited.
And so Ben and I was texting throughout the day because we were making like final payments and things like that for the wedding. And, you know, I clearly remember this message being like, I can't wait to call you my wife. And I was, you know, having that feeling of picturing walking down the aisle, like I'm doing the housework to like our wedding songs, like all of this type of stuff. So everything was well in motion for Saturday. And then I get this text message in the afternoon, like mid-afternoon, from Vicky, and it just says like, it doesn't say sorry, but it says, you know, I think that I didn't mean for things to get so heated yesterday. I think that mother and daughter-in-law relationships can be really difficult, but I think that we should work on ours for Ben. We both love him very much. And it was almost like she said something about it being a bit of an olive branch type thing. And I just remember I had this thought that I was like, this just doesn't sit right for some reason with me. And I don't know why. But I remember I then messaged Ben and I was like, oh, I just got this off your mum. And he said, oh, yeah, I spoke to her this morning. And I wrote back and I said, oh, so how are things? And he's like, fine, like everything's okay. We'll chat when I get home. So when he got home, things just felt a bit different. I don't know why, but I remember just feeling a little bit of, I don't know, tension, or I was just uncomfortable. So I kind of pushed the question of, oh, so what did you and your mum talk about? And he was like, oh, we'll talk about it when we get back. Like, it's nothing to worry about. He asked me what I thought of the text message that his mum sent me. And I said, well, I'm going to be really honest, and I don't feel like it was genuine. And he kind of looked at me and I was like, I feel like she sent it because you've had a conversation and she just wants things to be right between you and her. And he was like, well, that's ridiculous. They love you and you've got nothing to be worried about and all of this type of stuff. And I go, well, I don't actually feel comfortable with our my relationship with them anymore. I don't feel that what you're saying is true, especially after everything that's happened and the way that they spoke about me at breakfast. So we ended up having this massive argument around how things are going to work with his family post-wedding. And I was like, well, I want nothing to do with your family after the wedding. And he's like, well, how's that going to work? And I said, I'll still go to big events, but I was like, I'm no longer going to be there popping in on the weekend. I'm no longer going to be doing this for them. I'm no longer going to be doing that. And I think that was just my anger, but that's what really, I could see it in his face that was it for him. He was like very torn.